What's up, everybody? It is Sunday, July 16th, 2023. This is Now Mind You Podcast, Combat Sports Edition. I'm Matt,
I'm Bryce.
and as you can tell, this week we are without our boy TJ, who has some personal things to deal with today, but he will be back next week. With that, we just gonna jump straight into it. What we got for you guys this week is I will be covering the Alicia Baumgardner versus Christina Linardatou fight that took place last night. Yeah, you're right. Last night being July 15th, 2023. And Bryce and we will be covering the UFC Fight Night Holm versus Bueno Silva that also
Hell
took
yeah.
place last night. So I'm just going to jump straight into it. This was a title defense for Alicia Baumgardner, who has pretty much been making a name for herself. Uh, I would say a lot more within like kind of the last 2 years or so, especially here recently. She had a really highly publicized rivalry with Michaela Mayer, and when they finally had their grudge match, she was able to become victorious and unify the titles, which um, pretty much catapulted her status and catapulted her as a fighter. Uh, with that, she pretty much has been on a tear, and the last person to ever beat her was Christina Lina Tardu back in 2018. She beat her in a split decision in an 8-rounder, where she lost her international WBC featherweight title. Now, in that time, she went on a tear of, unanimous decision victories and TKO victories, which ultimately led her to picking up the WBC and the IBO featherweight titles, and then eventually picking up all the rest of the belts. So Christina Lina Tardu on her end has clearly been doing her part since their previous fight to work her way back to a title shot. Christina Lina Tardu, uh, last loss was against Katie Taylor back in 2019. Picked up a win back in 2022, unanimous decision in a 6-rounder, and was getting an opportunity to get another crack at Alicia Baumgardner for these titles. These being pretty much the unified super featherweight titles: WBC, IBF, WBO, WBA, IBO, and the ring titles. And this was a fight. Christina Lina Tardu definitely came to fight. She definitely came, to win. She definitely didn't, she didn't show up for a paycheck. I'll put it like that. But this girl fought with all heart. Both of these women, I'm sorry, both fought with a ton of heart. Um, Alicia Baumgardner was a little bit less. I don't know how to put this, but respectfully, she's a little less muscular this time around. She has she has a pretty good physique, and this time her shoulders weren't as big as they typically are. And I think that was because the goal here was not really to have to sit on as many punches, but to box, because Christina Lina Tardu has a very come forward style of fighting. You don't got to look for her. I'll put it like that. That's not to say that she doesn't box or move her head, but she's coming to fight. She didn't come to mess around. So early on, Alicia Baumgardner was able to kind of keep her at bay with her jab, and just by using her lead hand, with check hooks, a little lighter check hooks, and just by getting the jabs in there. And Lina Tardu started biting down on that mouthpiece kind of after the second and third rounds, and started trying to push in. And she was landing a few shots, but ultimately the story of this fight was the accuracy and the combination punching of uh, Alicia, pretty much during the course of this fight. She was able to sneak in some counter uppercuts, some counter right hands. She was able to tie her up when she got too close. But this was really a good showcase for Alicia, and it was a good opportunity for her to show that how much she's grown since the last time that they fought. Also, their last time fighting was it wasn't a 10-round fight. It wasn't a title fight. The last time they fought, it was an 8-round fight. So in this regard, it'll be really interesting to see what will happen going forward with Alicia Baumgardner. This was a good victory for her to pick up. she ultimately was able to pick up a unanimous decision victory. It looked like she was possibly going to stop Christina at a part in the 7th round, but Christina has so much heart. It's just so much dog in this woman. Man, like it's really hard for me to describe, really to just put it to you, but she was there to fight, man, and she showed how tough she was every single round. She never completely submitted to Alicia.
Mm.
And it's really something you ultimately really have to respect. But yeah, so that was the boxing portion. We could slide over to the UFC. Bryce, you can take us into Nazim Sadikov versus Terrence McKinney, the opening fight for Holm versus Bueno Silva.
I will be happy to. As you said, it's a lightweight bout between Nassim and Terrence. Nassim is coming off of a win over Evan Elder. It's UFC Fight Night Andrade versus Blanchfield. And Terrence McKinney is coming off of a TKO loss to Ismail Bonfirm at UFC 283. It was a good fight. I'll say that, but unfortunately, Terrence McKinney lost via submission in the 2nd round, which started off honestly kind of a occurring thing of a lot of surprises in each of the fights. The reason why I say that because Terrence McKinney won that 1st round entire. Completely had him on the ground, took him to the cage, then got him on the ground and just controlled him. Looked like he was trying to go for some submissions, but ultimately he just couldn't get the job done. And then going into the 2nd round, it seems said, let's run it back. Got him to the ground, and as DC put it, it sounded like it was a slight error on McKinney's part. He put like an arm down, and it just got him. I believe he got choked out by a rear naked choke.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just a slight mistake, but slight mistakes on the ground can cost you a lot. The scene won via submission in the 2nd round. It was a good showing on the scene. It was a good showing on Terrence McKinney's part. It's sad when a fighter is on a losing streak, and especially with McKinney because he had so much hype coming forward, but maybe just as he's climbing the ranks, he's just finding himself in with tougher opponents, and therefore just finding more holes in his game. But yeah, it was a good opening fight. I want to say it's definitely not the quickest fight that happened this night, but definitely surprisingly, it definitely ended surprisingly. So I'll pass it on to you, Matt. You have any thoughts on it?
It was, yeah, man. It was like not even grand opening, grand closing. It was just like it was going one way, and then it just turned left.
Yeah.
Terrence was able to, even as the commentators say, he burned a lot of the clock with that body triangle and that body lock that he had on him. And even though he was able to turn it around on him a little bit on the back end of that round, it was like you said, Bryce. Terrence McKinney very easily took that round home, but I think he noticed a difference in the grappling when he had him in that 1st round, and that was pretty much what led to him being able to ultimately take Terrence's back, flatten him out, and even the way that he had him, man, that shit was crazy. He had his arm trapped behind his back when he went for that rear naked choke. That's what was so wild. Was like there was no way for Terrence even to defend himself. That
Mm-hmm.
was really what it was, at least for me. But yeah, that's all I pretty much had on the fight. We'll slide over into talking about ground game. We had Norma Dermont versus Chelsea Chandler. Bruh, let me tell you something.
Yeah, we
This
gotta
was
talk about it.
a women's fight at featherweight. Yo, like so I was not familiar with either of these women leading up to this fight. So obviously did a little research and what have you. So Norma Dermont is Brazilian, and apparently she's been in the UFC for some time. She unfortunately lost her debut, which was against Megan Anderson. But that was back in 2020. And since then, she actually went on like a three fight win streak, lost, dropped one, and then she picked up two more, which led her to Chelsea Chandler. Chelsea Chandler on the other end, who is still relatively new to the UFC. This was actually her second fight in the UFC. She won her very first one via TKO back in October of last year. It ended up being a catchweight fight, but she also won performance of the night. She ran into what I think was probably the biggest challenge of her career. And really, I would say you really just saw the discrepancy. And I feel like I see this and say this almost more and more every week when I'm watching like UFC. The grappling is just so important, man. But in addition to the grappling, Norma was able to get busy with her hands. She had very good, very, very good hands. Early on, she landed some strikes that caused Chelsea Chandler literally to turn her back and run in the opposite direction to avoid further strikes, because I believe she probably got buzzed. And she attempted to transition that into, well, if I smother her, she won't be able to get her strikes off, which typically is a pretty good, pretty good strategy. However, turned out Norma Dumont had pretty good wrestling and jiu-jitsu, and once that turned into a takedown, if you saw the first round, you saw the rest of them. Norma just got Chelsea down to the ground and beat her up while she had her on the ground. It's it's as simple as that, open and closed case. I don't really have much to add to it past that. I'm just saying, like, if you saw the first round, you saw the second round, like, if you left the room and came back, you would think the same round was happening. She was pretty dominant. I felt like ultimately she was pretty dominant, and by she being pretty dominant, I'm referring to Norma Dumont. But I'll pass it over to you, Bryce.
Hey, speaking of first round,
Man,
if you watched it and you saw maybe like the first minute of the first round, Dumont got, I want to say it was a hook. She just got Chandler clean. And Chandler got days. I've never seen a UFC fighter hit the race
she
in a
sprinted
damn
right to the fence.
to the fence on the other side. She said, "No, I need to get out of here." I think that pretty much summed up this fight. It's just the tiger. They both tigers, but Dumont was the bigger tiger. And you know what makes it funnier was when I was watching. They do like the promos before they go into commercial. They be like shadow boxing in the camera and everything. I was just like, man, Chandler is huge. Like this is gonna be
Yeah,
interesting.
man,
Like
she had a build on her, man. She was
she got
solid.
a build, yeah, solid. But she had to hit the dash. I was like, damn, Dumont did hit the shit out of her. She looked like she was stunned. So that's all I gotta say, fam. You pretty much said it all. I saw the difference just in that punch,
Yeah.
just in that one strike where she was like, "Oh hell no."
Yeah, she's like, oh,
So
damn, that's crazy.
this is insane.
Why are
Let
you
me
over here
get
messing
out
with
of
these
here.
people?
Why am I here? What am I doing with my life? Um, it wasn't her night, but I'm sure she'll come back. She'll hit the ground running, and we
You
will
funny
see
as
her
hell.
again. let me let me go into the next one. We got a middleweight bout. Albert Duraev versus Park Jung Young, the goddamn Iron Turtle. That is the coolest name. That's the coolest name.
Mm-hmm.
That's what is that? That's Five Deadly Venoms, isn't it? The
Damn near.
Toad. Yeah. Yeah,
Iron
we got
Turtle
the
was
Toad.
that name fit.
Yeah. Slow and steady wins the race. That's exactly what happened. But just get to some stuff. Albert Duraev, he's coming off of a win. Oh my goodness, this name. Chidi Jokwani
Mm-hmm.
at
And
US
Jokwani.
Njokwani
Yep.
at Vera versus Sandhagen. And
Mm-hmm.
Park Jung-yoon is coming off of a win by submission against oh my goodness, these names. Dennis uh Tululin at Lupa UFC Fight Night, Lewis versus Spivak. So going into this, just a very difference in style. Slow and steady wins the race, as I said. Park Jong-yoon took it via submission in the second round. Going into it, Albert Duraev just comes in strong for a lead hook to the face, gets Jong-yoon clean, cuts him a little bit over the eye. I want to say it was his right eye. But that he didn't lose any composure. He didn't change up a style or anything. He was just in his face and always just connecting with that jab. If you were to look at it, just based off, if you were to hear it, you would think Duraev was winning. But if you were to look at it, it's very clear that those jabs were going through, and they were making their mark. Duraev looked like he came in there with red paint on. 2 to 3 minutes into the first round, that was impeccable. And then going further into the going further into the end of the first round, Park Jong-yoon just gets on Duraev and gets him in a guillotine choke that was very deep.
Mm-hmm.
Just to say how tough of a dude Duraev is, he just fought it. I want to say he was in
Bro,
it
this
for a
nigga
good
was in the guillotine choke for like 45 seconds, bro.
45 seconds. Just
Like damn near. Like,
like
bro really was in it.
the like you could see Jung Yoon's body just constricting on him. I want to say you could just hear him like just just pull it. But Jiraiya just stayed
Hey,
in there
yo.
and just stayed. He even fucking gave a thumbs up to the ref. I was like, oh my goodness, this dude is tough. This dude is tough. That was the first round. That was amazing. Going into the second round, it was more of the same thing. Park Jung-yoon still cool, still just making the shots where he can. Duraev coming in with the power blows, but eventually Duraev, the power blows was kind of tiring Duraev out. He started to slow down. And Jung-yoon took advantage of that. He started to kind of increase his shots. I want to say it was jab and a hook, and they were making their mark until eventually Park Jung-yoon got Duraev to the ground. And it was very close to ending to the getting to the third round until Jung Yoon got him with a rear naked choke.
Mm-hmm.
Duraev was tired though. He was real tired. He was trying to get him with those power shots, but Jung Yoon just was picking him apart. Very very clean win. Very dominant display, honestly to me. But Duraev just showed he's a tough motherfucker. But I'll pass it to Matt, man. What you think?
I'm gonna go back to what you were saying about the jab because that jab was beautiful.
Yeah,
He was popping him with that fucking jab, man. I mean, like you said, it looked like he was wearing red paint. He started painting his ass with that jab very early on, and that ultimately, I think, led to a lot of the victory. I mean, he chopped him down. Once he started dropping them right hands, man, he literally beat this dude. Like when people say they'll beat somebody to the ground, he literally did this. He
yeah,
literally beat this dude until he fell down. You know what I'm saying? And then
yeah.
after he got him all the way down there, he jumped on top of him and submitted him. It was just a
Uh-huh.
complete beat down all the way through, man. That shit was crazy.
Yeah.
It was crazy for sure. What's the next fight we had up after that?
It
Oh, okay.
is.
We had Ottoman as Azatar. Is that yeah? Okay. Ottoman Azatar versus Francisco Prado.
Crowd.
Oof.
That's a good ass line. That's clean.
It's a fire name. The
That's
first
a
and
fine
last
name.
names fire names. Uh Ottoman on his end, nicknamed the Bulldozer. This guy is still relatively new to the UFC. Granted, he has been in the UFC since 2019, but he has pretty big gaps in between fights. Once in 2019, once in 2020. not at all in 2021. And his last fight was in 2022, November of 2022, against Matt Frivola, where he lost in the first round via KO. Uh, on the other end, we had Francisco Prado, who is another somewhat newcomer to the UFC. Um, Francisco Prado is pretty much known in outside of the UFC as a little bit of a wild guy. Not like personally wild, just like wild in terms of his fighting style. And he definitely he definitely showcased that to say the least. When we saw him last night. So what we end up with is we get a pretty exciting first round, which I wasn't sure if it was going to make it out of the first round, and I was correct in the fact that it didn't. Um, we get Oddman and Francisco trading punches back and forth very early on. These guys seem to get comfortable throwing their hands against each other, and Francisco sets up a spinning elbow, like a spinning back elbow that he throws. He lands it the first time, and when he lands it that first time, Oddman just kind of like waves it off, right? Waves it off his finger, like, no, that's not gonna work. He's like, okay, let me try this again. He sets it up again. One of the other times he actually catches him. You notice that there's a cut a little bit. Eventually, he catches him the third time, and this guy goes down, and he is leaking. I mean, he split the side of this dude's head like crazy.
Yup.
And like the degree to which he was leaking, really, really for real, like no joke, was insane. And after that, he just jumped on this guy. I mean, he was landing hammer fists, he was landing punches. Even though this guy was put up the thumbs up and he was trying to get his defense and stuff like that going, it was one of those where he was trying to defend himself, but he was still getting hit. And he was still getting hit clean. And ultimately it's a TKO victory for Prado. And though he was and by he I'm referring to Ottoman, he was, trying to protest the stoppage. It was like, man, you were getting hit though. And obviously, like when you're in the situation, you're not fully aware of like, with adrenaline and everything, but like not only was he getting blasted, he had no idea how profusely that cut on his head was bleeding.
Yeah.
Like it was leaking. It was gross, man. It was really bad. It was really bad. But I'll pass that back over to you, Bryce.
Just going back over the finish. Yeah, he looked like the cut was just, it leaked immediately. He looked like Carrie. Um by the time he starts standing up and protesting the stoppage. And even when you see it and he's on the ground, he's just getting ground and pounded. If you look at his eyes, he wasn't really there. Like he just wasn't. He wasn't looking at Prado. He wasn't looking at the ref.
Man, he was in the room for sure, but
He was in the room, but he wasn't there. Um, yeah, it was a good display by Prado. That was very clean. It was such a clean elbow. That was very impressive. Um, Ottman tried. It was more of the round to me. Just felt like they were really trying to fill each other out and still trying to like get a good shot. I think Prado just knew he could get him with that elbow, and he did. And golly, like that was a good display. That was a really good display. Um, Kudos to both of them. Shouts out Prado. I hope he got like a finish of the night. Well, yeah, at least he's up there. Um, but we get to the co-main. Jack Della Medellina versus Basil Hafez. Welterweight bout. Jack Della, I believe he's number 14 in the rankings. And he is coming off of a pardon me, he is coming off of oh wow, a couple of his fights were canceled. He had a fight against Josiah Harrell and Sean Brady, all canceled. He's coming off a win by submission against Randy Brown. And Basil Hafez is I believe he's new to the UFC. Then it's looking like.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, honestly, with that being said, that's crazy to me because this dude was so impressive. Um, honestly, just coming in through the first round with a takedown, picking up Jack Della and just getting him to the ground and holding him there for a good time. Um, it was impressive. Honestly, I'm surprised that Jack got the decision.
Yeah, it
Um,
was a close fight.
it was a very close fight. You know what it comes down to me personally, it comes down to whether the refs, how they feel about striking and stand up versus the ground because you know,
Yeah, because there was some people saying online uh they felt like it was a robbery.
well, I'm looking at the stats. Look at this. Okay, total strikes. Jack got 149 out of 212. Bassel got 48 out of 141.
Uh-huh.
Significant strikes, Jack 83 out of 137. Bassel 32 out of 124. Takedowns, Jack got 1 out of 2. Bassel got 3 out of 20.
Mm-hmm. No, I hear
You know?
you. I hear you. I'm just saying I saw some people was talking about it. That's just me though.
No, I mean like I could see it as a toss up. I
Who
still
did you
think
but
Bassel
did
won.
you feel yeah, okay. I was about to ask you, did
I
you feel
still think
like
Bassel won. Yeah, because yes, Jack definitely was taking control of Bassel on the stand up, but Bassel had him on the ground and he held him there for a good amount of time. Um, yeah, I can hear both sides personally though. If you can hold somebody on the ground like that, I think that I would have geared it more towards him having the win instead of Jack. But either way, I think Bassel definitely made a statement. That was
so
that was a
you
good fight.
feel like so do you feel like Jack Della Maddalena won, or do you feel like Bassel won and he was robbed?
I don't think he was robbed, but I think I can see Bassel getting the win
I'm just,
split.
but what do you think? Not like not trying to be a
I don't
dickhead.
think he got robbed. I don't think it was a robbery. I
You
don't
think
think it was
Jack
a robbery.
Delamed, you think Jack won, it was just real close.
It was real close.
I agree. I agree. I thought that he did enough. It definitely won fight of the night. It was like you said, I think it goes to what judges are looking for when they're scoring. But I think you also not only do you factor in what the judges, well, I guess not just that. That sounds redundant. It's obviously what the judges score and like how do they score failed takedown attempts.
That's true. Three out of
You know what
20
I'm saying?
is yeah.
How do you are we scoring that as defense? Are we scoring that as this guy keeps attacking? What that's kind of the one thing I'm really curious about, just in terms of scoring. How do judges go about that when they're when they're doing the scoring and whatnot?
Mhm.
Uh, yeah. Well, I guess I'll go into our main event. We had the legend Holly Holm up against Myra Bueno Silva. Now, Holly Holm goes without saying, legend in two sports like Pee Wee Kirkland. Don't quote me on that. But former boxer, moved over into MMA, legendary MMA career. And pretty much has always been in some way, shape, or form in the title picture, in or around the title. Um, but she's been a little bit dealing with a little bit of some 50-50 as of late. After failing to capture the title back in 2019 from Amanda Nunes,
Mhm.
she ended up fighting Raquel Pennington, went on like a nice 2-fight win streak, and then she lost a split decision to Caitlin Vera back in May of 2022. And then she turned that around back in March and she picked up a victory over Yana Santos, a unanimous decision. And she was looking to uh she was looking to pretty much try to pick off Myra Bueno Silva to try to catapult herself, or even if not catapult herself, just keep herself within the title picture. Bueno Silva, on the other side, she's been in the UFC since 2018. She came off of the Contender Series, the Brazilian Contender Series.
Mm,
Um, and coming into this fight, she was coming off of 3 wins, 2 of which by submission. One being an arm bar, one being a knee bar that earned her Performance of the Night. And that was back in February when she went up against Lena Landsberg. The difference here in this fight, if you've ever seen Holly Holm fight, Holly Holm is a mover. She moves around a lot, uses a lot of footwork, a lot of boxing, a lot of angles. And she definitely was trying to utilize that to a degree, but it seemed like, in my opinion, she was outgunned.
mm,
Um, it seemed like a lot of her, she was collecting her points just by doing her movement and doing her striking and what have you, but it just seemed like Myra was waiting, like Bueno Silva was waiting on her timing and waiting the timer with big shots, and eventually she was going to land, and she did pull that off a few times. But in a true veteran way, like whenever she would land something big on Holly, Holly would wrap her up, grab her, and try to stifle that power. And
mm,
that, unfortunately, even though it's a good strategy, it did end up becoming her undoing because in her wrapping up Bueno Silva, she ended up getting put in a ninja choke, or like a standing guillotine kind of. Ended up getting choked out in the end of the second round, like kind of the back end of the second round. And it was really unfortunate to see because it was like there was literally, she just tapped and kind of walked away from it. There was nothing that
mm.
she really could do. And this was a huge win for Bueno Silva. Definitely a big win for her within the division, and just a big win to have on your resume, like to say that you've beaten Holly Holm. Like, regardless of Holly Holm not necessarily being in the same status that she once was before, that's still Holly Holm. You
Yep.
feel me? Like, I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but I'll pass it to you, Bryce.
No, I completely agree.
Bryce?
It was yeah. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Bryce, are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh wow. Okay. Sorry about that. So, yeah, I was saying I completely agree with you. The fact that she got that, it was such a clean guillotine. It was so clean.
Mhm.
It was seamless, and it was so quick. It was so quick. I don't it looked like Holly didn't even understand what was going on until it was fully on.
Yeah, that's the best way to
Yeah.
describe it. Like, she was just like out of, like, she didn't even know it happened. Like, oh
She
damn.
didn't know, right. She's like, all right, I'm gonna take him. Wait, what's happening? Oh shit. And like she just tapped so quickly. Um, yeah. I think you said it yourself, with Holly. Like it was seeing time kind of make its
It's here.
appearance.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man. It's a new day.
it's a new day. Um, and seeing how this is going to shape how what's going to go forward with the belt, with Amanda retiring, not yeah, Amanda
Yeah, Amanda
retiring.
retired.
Yeah, with Amanda retiring is going to be very interesting. Um, I think Silva definitely made a case for herself. Um,
Yeah, I
shit, she
mean,
got
Holly Holm at the time of this recording was ranked number 3, and Bueno Silva was ranked number 10. So the only people in front of
oh
her are Juliana Pena and Raquel Pennington.
oh yeah,
So if she
yeah,
ends up getting that number 3 spot, she's title contention. She's potentially one win away if that didn't make the case for her. But she's potentially one
exactly,
one win away.
exactly. Shit, Pena already started talking about her, so she definitely got some attention on her. So this will be interesting going forward. Um, you know, like you
What was
said, like,
your oh go ahead. Sorry.
no, what were we gonna say?
I was gonna ask you what your favorite fight was.
My favorite fight, man, just the way, I might have to say the Iron Turtle, man. That was just a very good display. It's definitely that. It's definitely between that and the co-main. Simply
Mhm.
because it was just a good battle, full of energy, just going at it. But if I have to choose, I'll say the Iron Turtle. Iron Turtle took me this one. Yeah. What about you?
For me, yeah, I'm gonna go with the Iron Turtle, man. That jab was fucking beautiful.
That shit
And
was
like,
crazy.
I like seeing guys get like broke down and shit. So for him to be getting like just picked off. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh man, he picked this dude apart. Just
Yeah.
it literally beat him down until you beat him to the ground and then choked him. I was like, yeah, that's it, bro. Like, got him out of there.
Mm-hmm.
So that was probably my favorite fight of the night.
Yeah, just the you know what I really appreciate about this card?
Mm.
Just everything was this card was suspenseful. I don't know if that makes sense, but like
Yeah, no,
things
after that Terrence McKinney, this shit was like, all right, what's gonna happen?
was fun to happen. Yeah, yeah. That was definitely the word of the night, suspense, because nothing went down the way I thought. You look up and just some new shit would happen, like the painted face, the spinning elbow, that guillotine out of nowhere.
Yeah, it was a lot of shit going down for real.
Yeah, yeah, it was good. It was a good card.
It was solid, man.
And then we still going, right? There's another card next week.
Yeah, we still got another one next week. I'm glad you brought that up. We'll transition into that actually. We got the return of my boy Tom Aspinall against
Oh
Marcin
shit.
Tybura next week. UFC Fight Night, Aspinall versus Tybura. My boy Tom Aspinall went down when we had that matchup against Bryce's boy Curtis Blades. Yeah,
Yeah.
blew his knee out in that fight. So
Ah,
really excited to see that. We also got Molly McCann on that card, Nathaniel Wood and Andre Feely, Paul Craig. And also this is for you too, Bryce. This one is a early card. This is overseas, so this one comes on at 2:00 for us over here in the Central Time. And I'm not
ooh,
gonna lie, I love that. I love
yeah,
when the cards come on early like that. That's beautiful. So we got that to look forward to next week. And the next big boxing event is actually taking place that I'll be covering, takes place the Tuesday after our next recording, which will be Stephen Fulton versus Naoya Inoue, but that's on a Tuesday, believe it or not. So that's going to be the Tuesday following when we record. So have that for you guys in like 2 weeks. And with that said, this has been another episode of the Now Mind You podcast. Thank you guys so much for rocking with us. You can find us on all social media, wherever you like to get your social media at Now Mind You podcast. You can find us on YouTube. We everywhere. And anywhere you go
everywhere.
look for stuff, that's where we are.
Yeah,
You can find me on social media at Matt Hambrick. That's MatThambric. You can find me pretty much on all platforms that way.
yeah,
You can follow our boy TJ on Instagram at
damn right.
+4_skate. That's TUSS, the number 4_SKATE. Bryce, where
Mm.
can they find you?
And you can find me on Instagram at Axe_Onta. That's AXE_ONCA. Say what? Bay. You
Baby.
know I have to say that. Yeah.
Had
And where
to.
can they find all of us?
They can find all of us at Now Mind You Podcast, wherever you'd like to get your social media and wherever you'd like to get your podcast. That's where we at.
Mm.
Peace out, y'all. Y'all be safe, and we'll see you guys next week.
Later.